Great way to start. Welcome to the latest installment of the Run to Daylight stream, Best Ball Study Hall. I'm your host, Todd Burrows, and I want to cover a few different things today. But before I get started, I want to talk about this possible stream that I am thinking of doing. Patreon that I'm starting to doing. I got a couple people who DM'd me and said they'd be interested. If you would like to or be interested in me doing a Patreon, please DM me. If I can get to like 20, 25 people, I think I'll start it. And I will teach you to best ball. I will put together in the next week or two everything that would be included. But I showed you a little bit about the what was I showing you? I showed you a little bit about last time, a little bit about the win rates and advance rates. The other thing that I have been working on, and did I screw this up? I guess I did it at work and I didn't forward it here. I'll have to show it next time. So, really well prepared, good start. If you are studying with me today, feel free to ask questions. I will answer them. But the other thing is that I was working on is my tiers. So we talk about tiers, and we talk about so basically I would share my tiers. That's the short version. So there will be a level where you can actually have my tiers, and you can cry when you lose. So Hayden is with us. What's up, Hayden? I appreciate you very, very much. So I'm going to do this backwards. I'll start with Hayden's work since he actually was kind enough to jump in. Jose asked a question, and the question is, for the Patreon, is it only for best ball tournaments or other formats for best ball? It's going to be mostly for tournaments, but most of what I share is stuff that I learned from doing non-tournaments. And if you are more of a grinder, you will learn how to build an exposure to various players and to make yourself profitable very similarly. So I think it will apply both ways. So let's get over to Hayden's article because, again, he's doing great work. And I have a feeling that I am going to be doing a lot of this with, I mentioned it on Twitter. If you're doing best ball work out there and you want me to review your work and give some thoughts, let me know. I'm going to be doing this as long as it's free and it's out there on the internet for anyone to watch. I have no problem sharing it. So I drafted a stud quarterback. Do I need a QB3? So I did look through some of this, and you should definitely check out Hayden's article. You should follow him on Twitter and go see his work. I'm going to distill a couple of the things I got out of this. So a couple weeks ago, Hayden showed that taking 3 quarterbacks is better than taking 2 from a pure point standpoint. And Hayden, I'll be jumping back. Oh, I have to put this back in here. Sorry about that. Now you guys can actually see. So Hayden, if I miss anything, you put a comment, or if I say something a little different than your intention, you can throw that out there. But Hayden showed that the third quarterback put up more points than this. I think it was the 6th running back or the 9th wide receiver. So there's a couple things that we're going to have to get into and cover, but there's no fighting the numbers. He showed it, right? He showed that from a pure point standpoint, but there's 2 key things that overall numbers aren't going to show you. It's not going to show you when quarterbacks were drafted, and that was some feedback that Hayden got. And what I like so much about this guy is if you give him feedback, he doesn't have an ego. He goes back and he actually tries to see if his premise will hold up to scrutiny, which is a trait that I try to live by myself. And that's why we call this best ball study hall, because it's not about egos. It's about drafting the best rosters. So based on this Best Ball Mania 2 chart, the third quarterback drafted on a best ball team contributed more points on average than a running back 6 and a wide receiver 9. And it's interesting that both of these are about the same. The other thing it doesn't cover is the type of points and how they come as far as spike weeks, although, I mean, points are points, right? And it also doesn't cover, and this was a point someone made to him today. I think it was Eric made a good point, Beam4, I don't know how you pronounce it, but he made a good point that lost my train of thought. So it doesn't show when they were taken, and it also doesn't show something else that he said. I lost it. What Hayden did was he went back and he said, okay, well, Josh Allen, right? One of the more successful quarterbacks, early quarterback. Let's look at it when he was taken. So the numbers, the Josh Allen teams that drafted 3 quarterbacks added 44.7 points on average compared to 33.7 points for the running back 6 and 32.1 for the wide receiver 9. This edge remained when he filtered out really weird drafts and only looked at these QB3s, running back 6 and wide receiver 9 picks when they were drafted round 15 through 18. All right, so a couple things. One of the strategies that I've been doing is a lot of times when I'm doing 2 quarterbacks, all 2 quarterback teams aren't the same, right? So you could take Josh Allen and then come back with Baker Mayfield as your second quarterback, or you could come back with a Matthew Stafford, or Tom Brady even, right? And one thing I noticed in reviewing my own teams last year and some of the other teams that advanced, what I noticed that because it was a good year for earlier quarterbacks rather than later quarterbacks, that last year was a great year for 2 early quarterbacks. So one of the things I'm going to teach in my Patreon is it's all about, to me, the overall amount of quality you're putting into each position. And knowing Hayden, he'll go back and try and dig in and show this even more. But we can't fight the fact that and I thought, based on his work, that we would be seeing a lot more 3 quarterback teams this year. And here's just one draft that I did yesterday. I was going to use this for my other thing that I was telling you folks about, but let's see. Team 1 did 3. Team 2 did 3. Team 3. See, this is the early. Now, that's a little too early for me. Josh Allen and Justin Herbert. That's a little early for me, especially without it being a stack for either of your first 2 picks. But too early, that guy should stop. And he did. All right. So this team did 2. So that's 2-2. This team 1, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4. Now this team did 3, 2, 5, 3, 5, 3, 6, 4, 6, 4, 7, 5, 7. And this team did Kyler Murray and Jared Goff. All right, so you can't compare a Kyler Murray, Jared Goff team to a 2 quarterback team with the one that I showed you earlier. So it's really important not to be dogmatic, right? And so the goal is to take this great information that someone like Hayden gives you and to use a little bit of common sense, right? It was like last year, and that'll be the second part of the pod. I'm going to go through some of these builds and show that there is an edge to roster construction, a rather large one, but it's in knowing more than just the basic numbers. So let's look at some of the things that Hayden said. He said, yeah, each study is going to have to be really granular, not like just Josh Allen teams, but Josh Allen plus which quarterback to figure out if you need a third. That's exactly my point, Hayden. And on top of that, you need to understand that last year might not be this year. And that is one of the other things I really want to get across to everyone. Studying last year is super important, but every year is different, right? I showed that on this in my other pod, where here's 2020 round one, and here's 2021. Well, you had a 5 and a 2%er in the first round because these two guys got injured. Last year, you really didn't see anything early, but you had a Calvin Ridley 4% in the second thing. It's all about that. You have to understand that these things that Hayden and I and other people that you study, you have to then take it and use your brain to look at what the board is showing you this year. Keeping that in mind, and to be good at anything, you have to be able to keep multiple thoughts in your head at the same time. You use past information as a guide, not a Bible. All right. So I think Hayden has, and now he says even this study wasn't detailed enough. No, but your point was that you did show that even that a third quarterback is very viable. So let's cut out everything, and I'll finalize it like this, because this is how I look at it. Ultimately, I am trying to put as many points on my team as I can, while for a best ball tournament, I'm not planning on how to advance. I'm trying to get as many teams as I can to advance. But then in the late rounds, I am also trying to make that team able to be hyper fragile enough to advance in the rounds that come after it. So late in the draft, I might be willing to give up 15, 20, 25 points at quarterback overall if I can get a correlation, like a week 17 correlation, like last year, the Bengals and Chiefs game, or an oddball stack, a guy like if you've got a Brown stack, throwing in a Hunter Bryant, the guy who had or his last name's Bryant. There's two Bryants. Might be getting the first name mixed up. The point being, late in the draft, yes, you should consider. I will definitely take a third quarterback if I don't feel my first two are good enough. If I take two early quarterbacks, like that one guy did with, Herbert being his second one, which was kind of dumb, but that's another thing. I'm going to stop. And then, but I want to be open to thinking about my team as I'm drafting in the late rounds. Do I like my team? Is this a team that I feel is going to need help to advance? Is this a team that I envision winning it all? Or is this a team that'll be lucky to advance? If it's a team that's lucky to advance, I might want a third quarterback. If it's a team where I really like the overall team and I feel like each position group has enough oomph, well, then I might not take a third quarterback. I might look for a correlation, wide receiver or running back or a stack or something like that. So those are the kind of thoughts. I really like what Hayden did here. And let's see, Hayden, is there anything else I missed that you think I should cover here if you're still around? Let's look. But I do like he covers here. The last thing I want to note is sample size issue when trying to find successful examples at each position. There were only 11 quarterbacks last year who were drafted at least 1,000 times. And then you look at, he actually put who did some scoring late in the playoffs. So that's the other thing. And with COVID this year, so I really feel like at some point people are going to get into distilling what advanced in the tournaments. And that is going to be even shakier information. As Hayden points out, sample size is a huge issue in advancing in these rounds. And when you throw in the mania we had with COVID, it's going to be really hard to get too much good information. But it's good that we study it. It's good that we analyze it and compare it and use it all to build the best teams that we can. So that is going to do it, I think, for Hayden's article. I really appreciate that he did that. There was another article that he did that I want to look at. Let's just quickly look at some of the cool stuff that Hayden's thrown out there. So he did the Josh Allen study. Top 250 rankings are out there. This was a good one, a best ball chart that was less and then, so he's got a couple really good articles out there. I really recommend that you follow him. Salary cap, the different types of free agents and the general odds. Yeah, I might look at this article next. This is going to intrigue me. But again, thank you so much. All right. So Wheeler asks, how does last year compare to 19 and 20? I mean, my brain doesn't remember 19 off the top of my head. But in general, every year we see different things. Like I remember one of the major sites that is very analytical last year was talking about when to draft a quarterback. And the quarterbacks were going 2 to 3 rounds earlier than they had with what they were studying. What you're studying, this is for the people who claim science and statistics. If the board's changed, well, then your results from the year before are going to change as well. And again, not to hype my Patreon too much, but I'm going to teach you to try and identify values and when to take them and how to blend teams. So if you would be interested in my Patreon, let me know. So now let's move over to the other thing I wanted to study, which was looking at the edge in draft rooms. All right. So Eric Beamfor said, well, everyone knows roster construction. So you're not really gaining an edge. You're just anteing. Well, last time I played poker, everyone at the table had to ante, and I had a 1 in 9 chance after anteing of winning. Okay. What Justin Herzig and I were trying to say is if the average advance rate is 8.5%, but in every draft, there's 3 or 4 teams that have put themselves behind the 8 ball because of poor roster construction, that is a big edge. So let's look at this FFPC draft that I just did. And let's look at each team. Let's start with quarterback. All right, so this team took 3 quarterbacks, and they took them all in the mid round, and that's decent. The 2 early, he didn't add a third, pretty good. 3 early, he took Davis Mills 2 early, but I have no problem with a third quarterback, especially since we don't know what Deshaun Watson's doing. 3 decent quarterbacks, again, late round QB. 2 quarterbacks with Daniel Jones being your second. I'm going to say that's like a quarter, that's not terrible, but it's not good. All right, Mahomes and Herbert. Using a 5th and 6th rounder, I'm not loving that, okay? 3 quarterbacks, throwing in Tom Brady, not bad. But Burrow and Goff, I don't know that Brady's the guy you want to go with there. But all right. Trey Lance, Winston, and Taysom Hill. This is good. This was me and Billy. Kyler and Justin Fields, 2 in the top 8 rounds, and we stopped. Tua, Mac Jones, and Willis. I mean, this team is weak right here. This team took 3 quarterbacks, even though they had Josh Allen. That's kind of, you know what? Let me do it more from an overall perspective. So this team, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 running backs, even though they had 4 running backs in the top 7 rounds. All right. We all know that wide receivers have more opportunity. So this is a team that's not well built. All right. He took 2 tight ends. Okay. This is a very poor team. All right. So here's one team that really put themselves, they took 4 tight ends, even though they spent 2 in the first, 5th round. So that's one bad team. Second team, good at quarterback, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 running backs, 3 tight ends, a little weak at tight end, but that's not bad. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is a good team, and that figures. It's my friend Theo and maybe Dan Williamson drafted with him. Good team. All right, third team. 3 quarterbacks with Davis. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 running backs. I mean, we'll see if 7 does okay. But then look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wide receivers. So I'm going to say this is a half bad roster construction. It's not terrible, but it's because, they've really only got 5 decent wide receivers and 2 dart throws. I'm going to give this a half off. So we're at 1.5. All right, this team, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 running backs in the first 7 rounds. And then they added 2 more. Why would you add 2 more? So this is at least a half bad. And then they've only got Logan Thomas coming off an ACL and Everett at tight end. I'm going to count this as a full bad. So now, I mean, this team could win, right? Anything could happen. These running backs that he chose could do amazing. But he put himself behind the 8 ball, and he's given me an advantage by his roster construction. So we're at 2.5. Bitcoin, I expect to be good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 running backs, BIP. 2 quarterbacks, 3 tight ends, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wide receivers. I mean, it's not my favorite, but, again, I like the players he picked. Donta and Pierce is a good rookie. I'm not going to count it because Bip really knows what he's doing. Russian Football Committee is trying to invade us. 2 very early quarterbacks. Well, let's see how that affected his team. He took 3 tight ends, even though he took Kelsey in the first round. And 1 is Austin Hooper. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 running backs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. All right. I can't go again. This is not a team I feel I have an advantage over. It's not a big enough, not big enough of an advantage. Let's go to Jungle Cats. And these are early drafts. These are with guys who really in $125 draft. 1, 2, 3, 4 tight ends. 3, including Tom Brady. I like the Brady shot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 running backs. He's a little weak at running back. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, with the 20 rounds, you're covering a multitude of sins. I'm gonna take a quarter off. So now we're at 2 3/4. All right, next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 running backs. Has enough weight in the early ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 wide receivers. 4 tight ends, including 2 that are really and 3 tight ends. I'm going to go with another quarter of a ding here. I think this team is giving me a quarter of an advantage. So we're up to 3. All right, now let's look at what Billy Musio and I did. So we've got 1, 2 running backs pretty early, 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 running backs with 2 early. A good value on this rookie here, Keyshawn Vaughn and Ronald Jones. So we took a shot there. It's not my favorite, but it's not terrible. I mean, it's not a deduction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, including some really nice ones late in Berrios and Rodgers. We took 2 quarterbacks. We took them early. We took 3 tight ends. We took them a little late. I mean, that was the part of the team that I thought was the weakest, but there's, that's a solid roster construction, 2, 6, 9, 3. Yep. All right. So this team goes 0 running back, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then adds 2 late. I have no problem with that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 running backs. I love Penny and Connor, but Chuba. I mean, this is a 0 running back team. So this is a team where they're going to need some luck, right? I might have. They drafted likely a 3rd tight end. But this is what happens when you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wide receivers. When you go 6 wide receivers and then you take 2 late, I mean, I probably wouldn't have, even though these are fine, I probably wouldn't have taken them because your wide receivers, Chuba Hubbard, even when McCaffrey got hurt, didn't, do much. White, a lot of people like. I don't like him as much. Well, you got 3 rookies. You've got 2 guys who you don't know where they're going to land. I mean, it could be fine, but it's I'm going to take a 0.5 point from this team. So that's 3.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 running backs, 3 quarterbacks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wide receivers. I don't know this Windemeyer guy, but they needed a 3rd tight end because Gronk, we're not sure he's going to play. I'm not taking a deduction here. Pretty good construction overall. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 running backs, 3 tight ends, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 3 quarterbacks. All right, so that that's fine. So you get my point. There is definitely an advantage to really understanding roster construction. If I'm in 100 leagues, and in every league on average 3 teams are behind the 8 ball because of roster construction, I have a huge edge in having a chance to advance, right? I'm now competing against 9 teams instead. I've still got a 2 of 9. So let's just look at this as by the numbers. Equals 2 divided by 9. 22% equals 2 divided by 12, 16%. So I've gained a 6% chance of advancing. Now, I have to, one of Eric Beamfor's key points was you still have to do a lot of other things. And I agree with that totally. And we need to go into that. But my point that I was trying to make, and I believe Justin Herzig was trying to make, is there is a significant edge in understanding good roster construction and building your teams according to it. So that was my key thing. Let's go back over here. Berrios, I know he's scoop him while you can because he is solid. And I definitely think you guys have a top 3 team here. Well, I think, that's the goal, right? The goal is to have a top 3 team. and then hopefully get a little luck and do 100 drafts. And if you build with good construction and you do the work on finding the right players, and you stack and you correlate and you find some sleepers, you're going to have a really good advance rate. And in the FFPC especially, where 25% of teams advance each week in the playoffs, you have a very good chance of being profitable. So I've talked about the Patreon. I've talked about the roster. Let me look real quick at this guy. So here is a underdog draft. All right, so it's just harder to see on here, and I don't know how to get this. Here, there we go. All right, now we're cooking. All right, so let's look. So we've got 1, 2, 3 quarterbacks. Trey Lance, there's still a chance he's not a starter. I think he probably will be, but Malik Willis, rookie, Baker Mayfield. I mean, that's a little weak. I wouldn't deduct for it on its own. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I'm going to take a half a point here, because in underdog, you have to start 3 wide receivers, and you have and only having 7. With bye weeks, you're not going to have enough wide receiver for the flex, and you didn't start to the 5th round. Half a point off. All right, this team went with hero running back. All right. And this could be a Rotoviz team. You've got Taylor followed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wide receivers, and then he starts in the 7th round with running backs. So in a build like this, I would expect to see at least 6, maybe 7 running backs. Let's see how many he had Taylor. I'm sorry. I take that back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So he went 8, even though he had Taylor. That's a half a point deduction. All right. And Russell Wilson, Zach Wilson, and Wentz. But that's a half a point deduction. You look at the tight end, and you've got Hunter Henry and Gerald Everett. That's at least a half a point deduction. I lost track already, but I think we took a little here, a little there. This team, 2 quarterbacks very early, no running backs until round 9. 2, 3, 4, 5. And he only took 5. That's a full point deduction. That's bad roster construction. If you're going to do 0 running back and only take your 1st and the 9th, you got to start 2 of these guys every week. This might be the deadest team we've seen so far. This team, all right. So this team, you've got 4 running backs early. I would expect him to only have 1 more. And then he goes James Robinson, Sony Michel, Gus Edwards. Deduction, half a point deduction, just on that. I'm not going to keep going through all of this. But the point is that you see that there's a huge advantage to knowing roster construction. All right, so Hayden has a really good comment here. I'm starting to think of roster construction through the first 14 rounds or so, mostly because of most of the points scored come from them. Late picks are usually very meh. I think that's kind of exactly what I've been trying to say during a lot of this, Hayden, which is you've got to look at each position group and count you've got to, the later picks should be a couple things. One, it should be to get, especially on underdog, to fill out your tight ends, right? The later picks should make you, help you fill out your tight ends, fill out your quarterbacks, get stacking, get correlating. But the key is, just like you say, I think you do have to look at the total construction, but then really advanced thinking is coming up with a system. even if it's just in your head, of how strong is each one of my position groups. And that's why I call roster construction guardrails. They're not the highway. You don't drive on them, but they keep you from crashing. Okay? So I think this is a very, very good thought, and I like it very, very much. And I think you are smart enough, Hayden, smarter than me with numbers, that's for damn sure, to come up with a way to quantify what that 14 round thing means. And then you also have to obviously come up with, you still need to fill out your team. And I'm so glad that both Underdog and FFPC heard the people and went to 20 rounds. All the more your skill in drafting is going to be paid off, and less of winning is going to be injury variance and injury luck. So I'm excited for this year. Wheeler thinks he's onto something, and then Hayden says, so instead of thinking 3-5-7-3, I think it should be mostly looked at like 2-4-6-2. Well, I got to tell you that especially on FFPC, I've always had that I want to get through the first 13. This is standard best ball. I always wanted to get through the first 13 rounds, I think, with 2 quarterbacks, 4 running backs, 4 wide receivers. But again, remember FFPC, you don't have, you only need 2 wide receivers and you have 2 flexes and 2 tight ends. So it was 2 and 8, 10. So through the first 12 rounds, I always wanted to be 2-4-4-2. And that way I knew that I had put a good amount of weight into each position group. And then I would, start adjusting off of that based on who the guys were. So there's some other advanced thoughts there, but I like this a lot, Hayden. Tigers 1211. Welcome to the party. Thank you for joining. I really appreciate it. What are your thoughts on fast draft versus slow? Everyone knows construction. Well, that was what I just showed. Not everyone does. But fast draft give you an edge when making decisions on the clock. Everyone has a plan until you get.
Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the mouth and you're bleeding on the ground and your mouthpiece is about 5 feet away and Buster Douglas is looking at you and you don't know what to do.
Sorry, I hadn't practiced that in a while. But I think for me, this is absolutely true. In fact, I quantified it, and I definitely had a much better win rate last year in FFPC on percentage-wise, advance rate on live drafts than I did on slow. But that's tailored to me because I know all this stuff. I always used to use the example when I was younger, I was a carpet installer and I had a toolbox and there were a lot of tools that I didn't use except once in a while, but boy, it was great to have them when I needed them, right? And to know how to apply them. So I don't go into a draft with a strategy, but having all this knowledge gives me advantage over the average person. So live drafts are better for me. Also, I like with slow drafts, because I do 7 or 8 at the time and I hate to hold up the draft. Sometimes I don't put in as much thought as I don't take as much of an advantage of it being a slow draft as I possibly should. So for me, fast drafts are definitely better. The only issue is for FFPC, they don't fill right now. But I've done only fast drafts for Underdog so far. Good question. So to finish that up, Tigers, if you think you have an advantage in fast ones, you probably do. But I would go back over your results from last year, and I would make sure that my advance rate was at least even to what it was during slow drafts versus fast drafts, and make sure that your feeling actually has something to back it up. All right. All right, back to Hayden. You know how they have the NFL draft pick trade chart? The fourth overall pick is worth yeah. Yeah, I think it might be difficult. But and again, I don't think that you want to have a mindset of exactly that, because you want to be able to scoop. One of the key things both Justin Herzig and I believe in is scooping ADP value when it presents itself. I will go a little off kilter early in a draft if someone that is a screaming value on my board. Right, I'm not going to pass them just because I might have to struggle with roster construction later. But as a general rule, I do like this, and I'm looking forward to what you come up with. And then he said, so we can see how much capital we need to fill each position. And exactly. If you can quantify that, I will do a show on it, and maybe even you come on and we can kick it around. I think there's a lot. I think this is where best ball studying needs to go, where it hasn't gone. And it's been, and it will be an edge for those who can grasp it. Wheeler, key is to do fast drafts at 5 a.m. because you catch all the drunks on the West Coast. That is an underdog. Yes. JM Twin always talked about doing drafts in the middle of the night is a great idea. Tigers. I don't like having a set player count by position because each one draft is. That's basically what I said. Right, think of guardrails, right? Again, or painting by numbers, right? You can paint anything you want in the middle. It doesn't matter which square you paint first, as long as you don't go over the line. Same thing with guardrails. As long as you're not, as long as you're on the road, yes, you want to, like if you have a way of making a hairpin turn, that help, that's cool and different. Yeah, I agree with this 100%. But I do think that what Hayden's talking about is setting guideposts. And I think the average player, if they can grasp it, will learn a lot. All right. So why do I do content, right? Like I'm giving away some really good stuff here. I do it because I enjoy it. And I do it because I know that even if I explain it perfectly, you see it all the time in these drafts. Like how many zero running back drafts do you see where a guy like Sean Siegel has painstakingly explained how to do it? Or Justin, I had him on my pod last year, and he explained how to do his 4 running back power running back drafts. He explained it very clearly. You need the equity early in those running backs, and how many 4 running back drafts I saw last year with 1 in the 2nd round, 1 in the 5th, 1 in the 11th, and 1 in the 17th. And this person thought they did the 4 running back theory that Justin did. So that's a long way of saying, yes, it's going to be impossible to explain. And ultimately, Hayden, it's so that we understand it better, so that we can draft better. But whatever you do that takes it in that direction is going to be very interesting, and I look forward to it. Basically what Wheeler said. That seems like a lot to quantify and even harder to explain. Well, I did the best I could to explain it. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I enjoyed doing it. I am really glad that Hayden came on to discuss this. I will continue to tag people when I'm going to do these little study halls. And I enjoy sharing, and I enjoy the feedback and having you guys be part of it. If there's not any other questions, I'm going to close this thing out. You are very welcome, my friend. All right. Thank you, guys. That's going to do it. Thanks to all the contributors who are putting out good work. I am trying to be the best me that I can. You know, why do I do this? I kind of went in it, but the main thing is it's so easy with your biases not to read someone's article, not to want to get confused. So if you're a best ball contributor and you want me to see something and do something like this, to check your work and to just discuss it. I think it's going to make all of us better. And you put in the hard work and hopefully we get the results. That's going to do it, guys. Thank you so much.